Hey colleagues, welcome back. We are here after a gap of 3 weeks. Firstly, because of the Eid holidays, and then for for certain reason we had to postpone our webinar for a couple of weeks. This is our final concluding webinar, and it is my humble duty, along with Dr. Saad Niaz, to thank all the colleagues. We started this journey on August 9, 2020, when we were hoping at that time that the pandemic may come down, but then what we saw was that the pandemic is likely to continue. So we decided to start with a series of US ESCP educational webinar series for all the colleagues, and up till now we have conducted 40 to 42, and this is the journey that we started with David Leslie Carlock, and he gave us an introduction on the ERCP equipment and the learning curves that one can have. So starting with that journey, we covered various aspects of EOS and ERCP, from basics to the advanced, and I'm sure you must have enjoyed thoroughly on the different aspects that we discussed. We involved the masters of the masters in the field from various parts of the world. They shared their valuable experience to all of us. I, in my personal capacity, learned a lot, corrected my mistakes, and I'm sure that you would have enjoyed those sessions, and you would have immensely benefited to um, um transfer this share to your patients. A special thanks to the Wilson Pharmaceuticals, and in particularly Sulangi and Said, for coordinating and organizing everything, providing us with a platform. Junaid Mushtaq, on weekly basis, he has been organizing, contacting the various people on behalf of me. All the speakers who have participated in the program up till now are friends from UK, like Nadeem Thiyami, Khalid, and Athar Ahmed Saeed, and so many others who have been contributing, including Wakar in Manchester, and in USA, obviously Mustafa, Ryan, Khalid San, and so many other people in the rest of the world who have contributed. And then I'm in particular thankful to the Asian Endoscopical Sound Group, University of Health Sciences, Dow University of Health Sciences, the Rester Disease Foundation, and College of Physicians and Surgeons, and lastly, uh, all the attendees, without which this program would not have been successful. And I have special acknowledgement and dedication, and this series is dedicated to the pioneers of ERCP in Pakistan. I know that this list is not complete, but then these are the ones who pioneered ERCP in Pakistan: Dr. Zia Shamsi, Professor Nusrullah Chaudhry in Lahore, Professor Anwar Khan, and Professor Javed Bhatt. These are names that I can recall, but I'm sure there'll be plenty of others who would have contributed immensely in starting ERCP in Pakistan. I'm talking of mid 80s when the ERCP started. And I remember Professor Nusrullah Chaudhry in 1989 when I used to work with him, uh, standing next to him, learning the tricks of putting a cannula into the papilla. That's the first experience, first exposure that I got. And similarly, I'm sure Dr. Saad Niaz must have good memories of so many people in Karachi who contributed. And then US, which started a bit later, but then Dr. Asim Yusuf in Shaukat Khan Memorial Hospital, and Dr. Amjad Slamat in the military side in the CMH. They're the ones who pioneered endoscopic culture. And then I and Saad Niaz, we took over, and then we have so many other colleagues in the group who have uh, started doing US. And I'm sure in the coming day there are going to be many more who are going to be, um, uh, I must say, that who are going to take over the problem. All the sessions uh, which have been conducted, they're available on the PSC website. The website is www.pscpark.org, and Facebook. And I'm sure those who want to attend, in a week or so, the sessions will be available over there, and you can visit those sites. So with this, I go to my regional program, the webinar of the day. I understand this program, this topic is very, very important, and this is close to the hearts of the majority of us. We work in the um, economically deprived areas, and understand that working in these areas, we need to have special understanding on this subject. Rational use of accessories and making EOS and ERCP economical in the local settings is very important. And I have a very important disclaimer that these are the majority of things that I'm going to discuss. And I'm going to be followed by Dr. Saad Niaz. He's going to share his vast experience that he has done in Civil Hospital Karachi and in the private sector in Karachi. He's going to share his experience after me, and the experience coming from north and south. You'll be able to understand the kind of difficulties that we had, especially after having worked in the west, where the resources were never a problem, and now working in the economically constrained situations, we had to improvise our practices. And the views that I'm going to share, they are based on the experience of working in Pakistan since 1987. So understandably, it's a level 4 evidence. This is not level 1, this is not level 2, this is not level 3. So you you must understand that there must be some kind of bias as well. And they don't represent the Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology or CPSP policies. And I'm mentioning this in particular because currently I'm the president of Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology and dean of faculty of gastroenterology. So while I'm speaking here, that doesn't mean that I'm speaking the policies of the two organizations that I represent. PSG shall issue a position statement in the current year on this issue. The working committee has been given the task by the executive committee of the Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology, and they're going to come up with this task in near future. And at the same time, I should like to share with the people that I've been a member of the committee to standardize the technical details of GI equipment in Punjab province. At the same time, prepared documents detailing minimum standards of GI endoscopy units in Punjab province before they can embark the journey in by providing service to the people. And we must remember that we have to abide by the laws of the land and instructions issued by following three agencies. They need to be kept in mind. Firstly, Drugs Regulatory Authority of Pakistan, which puts us certain restrictions, though at times we fail to follow them. But it is worth remembering that for our own safety, for our own patient safety, it is important to follow the Drugs Regulatory Authority of Pakistan. Then the healthcare commissions of the respective province, wherever you're working, irrespective of whether you are working in Sindh or you're working in Punjab or you're working in KPK or Balochistan, it's important that we must follow the instructions, the rules and regulations of the healthcare commission because they provide us the safety standards. And then obviously the Ministry of Health represented by Pakistan Medical Council, Pakistan Medical Commission, which is a new avenue coming up, and it's the ultimate regulator of the health in this.
सही जवाब आ गया और दूसरा वाला करो नेक्स्ट
Can
रेडी करके
everybody
आंसर आ रहा है
can everybody hear me?
अगर जरा सी गलती
May I request everyone to mute themselves so that in case you have any question, you can raise your hand and we can take you after the session. Or if you have a burning question, we can take it in between. Dr. Said?
Yes, sir, you can continue, sir. I have muted down.
Okay. Now, coming back to the subject, economy of the ERCP in US, we must remember that there are certain direct costs and then there's certain indirect costs. The indirect costs are obviously the cost of the equipment, cost of the infrastructure, cost of the maintenance to the equipment and the building where we are working, and then the cost of human resource in terms of salaries, trainings, and the orders that we do periodically. So this is something that comes under the indirect cost, which is invisible to majority. So one has to make a cost benefit ratio and analysis for every procedure that we do, but this is not my strong field. This is not a strong field of any clinician. Rather, this is a strong field of medical statisticians, health economists, and auditors who have worked extensively on the subject. But to give you an overview, the comparative analysis show that these procedures are of immense benefit to the patients. They reduce the hospital stay and they improve the morbidity and mortality. And the actual costs may vary from various sectors and from various countries. I understand that there are attendees from various countries in the forum, and they can judge the things while working in their own country. And the benefit analysis and cost benefit analysis may vary, and they have to calculate. But for the country which I'm representing, the cost of equipment, the indirect cost, we must remember that a good quality duodenoscope and workstation that costs 10 million Pak rupees. If we talk about the eco endoscopes, the cost is even higher, 16 million. The flow scope may vary depending upon the kind that you're using, starting from basic CM to the proper flow scope. It may vary from 6 to 22 million. Monitoring equipment is worth 0.5 million. Automatic disinfection equipment, which is part and parcel, an essential component of any endoscopy unit, is 1 million. Gas plies, which are again essential, especially majority of these procedures are done under sedation, so another 0.5 million, and miscellaneous things, another 0.5 million. And this doesn't include the cost of disposables. Now, well, rest of the world is talking at the moment on disposable endoscopes, single-use endoscopes. It has started with the duodenoscope, but then spy-scope, upper G endoscope, colonoscope. Increasing talk is being made of this. Is it really cost effective for the economically improvised countries? The answer is possibly no. At the same time, artificial intelligence is coming up very rapidly, and through the entire artificial intelligence, the companies have a potential to block the technology while sitting in the head offices, maybe in the California, maybe in Paris, but then they have a capability to block use of the equipment. And then multinational companies, marketing based decision making by the health regulators is being increasingly seen, for which the societies like Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology is there, and similarly the other societies in the rest of the world are there to look into it, although at times we fail in our duty. Now, when we talk of the cost benefit of US ERCP in economically underprivileged countries, there are lots of things that we have to look into. It's not just the cost. It's not just the direct costs or indirect costs. We need to look at the benefit as well. We need to look at the widespread availability for our patients. If in UK, after every 300,000 population, there's a tertiary referral center in the form of a health authority, why cannot it be there in India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, or similar countries? The training, wider the availability of a technique, obviously more are going to be the training opportunities, and better are going to be the trained doctors in that. Accessibility to the patient is directly linked with the availability of a facility and availability of the trained doctors. Complementary services are to be there, and unless there's a complementary IR facility, unless there's complementary laparoscopic abdominal surgery, the endoscopic ultrasound and ERCP becomes meaningless. So for that, the future developments have to be carried. So in nutshell, this benefit is of immense importance. And then the cost, obviously, we need to keep the word standards in mind. We need to keep the things sterile, or high level disinfection is the important thing. Functionality of the equipment by changing the equipment after every 5 to 7 years. And mind you, these equipments are very, very expensive. And now, with a changing scenario, loss of legal liability issues are also coming up. People have started to go to the court to sue against the doctors. And then medical ethics with intellectual conflicts in terms of proprietary rights and intellectual conflicts. If especially the scenarios where we are working, we have to work in the private as well as public sector. Are we maintaining same standards on the two sides? Maybe yes, maybe not. And then artificial intelligence based technologies, which are coming up pretty fast, remote monitorings, all these, they come into play, and the hidden costs are important subject. Now, we need to remember that there are lots of discussion points, pros and cons of reuse of the accessories, reprocessing processes that we need to know, awareness regarding the reuse. And at the end, I and Dr. Saad Niaz are going to share our experience. My job is to set the stage and give my experience on my side. And then Dr. Saad is going to give his experience in Karachi. The repeated use or multiple use of any medical device, including devices intended for reuse or single use with reprocessing between uses, is called reuse as per the definition given by FDA. And the single-use devices versus reusable devices, we must remember that there's a significant additional cost with the single-use devices, and reuse single-use devices at times is much more cost-effective. But then there are other issues attached, that there may be potential for cross-contamination, there's liability issues, and then so many other things that we are going to come up in the coming slides. majority of the reusable single-use devices, they have a clear-cut indicator that these devices are not to be reused. They are strictly for single use, they're disposable. And in practices, what do we do? Already used, we recycle in our own system. Then number of times we get the devices which have been opened but unused, and mostly they have been sent as a gift from friends abroad or brought from third-party vendors in the modern world. And then at times we use expired items as well, knowing it very well that within a certain period of time, the plastic of these things doesn't degrade. And mostly again, they're sent as a gift from the friends from abroad. So whenever we're using these accessories, we need to have a balance between the two, safety versus saving that we are doing in terms of benefit to our patients, cost reduction that we are doing to extend benefit to majority of patients, and understandably environmental burden reduction as well. But then safety is compromised in these patients. How big is the problem of sterility in these patients? And is there is there a problem with the functionality as well? We're going to discuss this in detail. Liability issue and ethic, I'm not going to take up at this time, because these are something which is beyond the scope of this thing. When we talk about the medical devices, FDA being a gold standard and the one which we always look towards whenever we're looking towards the certification, uh, they have classified the medical device into 1, 2, 3, and our devices, they fall into device class 2. Device class 2 means that they need special controls, guidelines, registration, and post-marketing surveillance to see to check the durability and safety of the equipment. There have been talks of, on the similar subject in mid decade last year, in mid last decade, and I think they were roughly at the same stage where we are in 2021. That do the hospitals save money, but safety is questioned. So, an article published in Washington in December 11, 2005, they picked up the same subject. And if you look at our region, the Asia Pacific region, a survey which was conducted in year 2000, we could see that majority of the centers, they were reusing the equipment. It was not just the reusable biopsy forceps which were there. It was not just the expensive mechanical lithotripter which was being used, or the Domi basket that we used to extract the stone, but for the common things as well, for biliary guide, for sclerotherapy needle as well, which used to be quite common, especially for the injection of the isophageal varices, which has been taken over in favor of band ligation. We were reusing the sclerotherapy needle in these patients, but obviously it was linked with certain issues, and the most important issue was infection, and then malfunction of the device, complications, and legalities and ethics, which we are not going to discuss at this time. What kind of disinfection do we really need? For semi-critical, we fall into the semi-critical type, where our devices are coming in contact with the mucous membrane and at times non-intact skin. So we need a high level of disinfection. So this is something that we need to ensure. And this high level of disinfection can kill all the vegetative organisms, inclusive of mycobacterium, um, tuberculosis, and non-tuberculous mycobacteria, fungal spores, viruses, but they may not kill all the bacterial spora. Prion is a concern, but is it a big issue? We don't really know. And in uh, in a study which was published, and I took it from ASC guideline, that there's a potential of transmission infection. Pseudomonas is a big concern, and in recent past, with the duodenoscope, the multi-drug resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa has been found to be a big culprit. And similarly, there are other Enterobacteriaceae which have been found to be culprit. But then uh, um, there's been a transmission infection of Helicobacter pylori, but are we really worried about Helicobacter pylori when 70-75% of routine populations suffering from Helicobacter pylori? Maybe not, but then definitely hepatitis C and hepatitis B are a major concern. Strongyloides is something which can be transmitted through the endoscope. So important thing is that we must remember that there's a potential of transmission of infection. In a study published and conducted in Thailand, There was a prospective study of 323 Ercps from January to September 2006 and published in Endoscopy. Um, a total number of 301 cases for reuse and 22 with new exercises was studied. Complete records were available for 220 people only, and they had assessed on success rate, complication, reusable numbers. And it was interesting to note that they were able to use ESAP cannula in 4.8 cases, meaning by before discarding. They were from 2 to 7 cases for that reused the cannula for pre-cut needle knife 1 to 5, sphincterotome 1 to 5 with a mean of 2.5, and stone retrieval balloon 1 to 8 with a mean of 3.4. Guide bars can be reused as many as up to 9 times uh, with a mean of 3.6. Oasis stent inducer from 1 to 14 times. Dormy basket 1 to 5. I understand that in our part, at times we tend to use it for much longer time, but what is the uh, safe limit we have to look into? Definitely, the success rate comes down with the reuse success rate. And I'm picking this subject in particularly, uh, more a person is less experienced in the procedure like ERCP US, greater the chances that he's going to fail in the given circumstances. At the same time, people are likely to have more complication with ERCP. Obviously, pancreatitis is the commonest complication in addition to hemorrhage and in addition to perforation. So this is something that we need to remember, that success rate comes down and the complication goes up. So a balance needs to be made on this account. And then the indirect costs, the central supply fee in bath and technician wage and all these things were calculated in the study, which published by Mean in endoscopy in this. Now, when we talk of the reprocessing, we must remember that there are certain steps in the reprocessing. There's an immediately enzymatic soaking with manual cleaning, and then 30-minute ultrasonic cleaning followed by tap water rinsing, proper lubrication, and high-level disinfection in the disinfector. Only then the device is ready for use, and there have been extensive guidelines on this by this. And consideration for reprocessing and reusable device: is a device uh, really clean, and can it be really cleaned? How to assess that this is clean? And then finally, the integrity and functionality of the device maintenance. This is something which has to be enforced, and there are guidelines by the various societies on this particular, and people have worked extensively on this, and there's been association of medical device reprocessors on this account, and they have in particularly focused from the GI point of view on these accessories which we see. Starting from Kozaric's initial studies from 1988, and then later on, multiple publications which have been made by Eamon Quigley, Kozarix, and other groups, we can see that the number of reuses have been studied by various centers, and for sphincterotomes, roughly there are 3 to 4 times that people have found that they are safe to use. And then whenever we're using sphincterotomes and retrieval basket, and similarly for guide wires, we must remember that they need to be checked on certain things like looking at the cutting wire, the potency of the lumen, looking at the leakage of the plastic, and then effective bending at the tip. Otherwise, you're likely to cut in the wrong direction. Perforations likely to take place. And if there's electrical leakage, the person is likely to have shock, and person can go into electrical disturbance at other places. And then in the retrieval basket, it can open in the wrong direction, especially, and the stone may not open. And this is an example of the basket that you can see, the one which has been used extensively and the one which is perfectly new. So in 1998, a very good study was published by Wilkinson and Mike Bramble. I've been working with Mike Bramble in 1993-94 in Middlesbrough General Hospital, and they published the study, and they individualized very elegantly that there's certain things which can be reused, although with a limited number, but then dilatation balloons, cytology brushes, retrieval balloons, stents, and guide wires possibly. They are the ones which should not be used, and they should be strictly single use. Again, my message to the audience is that we have to individualize. We may not be following the same principle, we may not be following the same guidelines, but in general, cytology brushes, yes, we don't tend to reuse. Vessel injection needles, we don't tend to reuse. Dilatation balloons, we do reuse. Retrieval balloons, we reuse multiple times. And guide wires are being used multiple times, but stents definitely a single use only. Um, with the reporting system that was in place by FDA, made mandatory from 1996 to 1999. If you look at the reporting, the malfunction was reported the most common reason for an untoward event during the procedure. But then there have been entries in 72 patients and 7 deaths have been recorded. And following that, the USA American Gastroenterology Association, American Society of Gastroenterology, they came up with the different analysis. How do we do the cost benefit analysis of a reuse accessory? This is a complex process. Initial purchase price and then the reprocessing cost, they need to be kept in mind. And 1 plus 2, including uses minus 1 divided by number of uses, they give us a rough idea, and they can give us a guideline on the number of uses that we can make in a given device. So how did I start my journey, and what are my lessons from the Ercp in USA and Pakistan? I came back from UK in 1995, and that was an era of reusable devices. We did not have any access to the disposable, and in the rest of the world as well, the disposable devices were not being used. Although in America in 1998, the talk of disposable versus reusable started, and the number of publications which came from COSRX and similarly Eamon Quigley from UK, they started coming up in the literature. Uh, from 2002 to 2010, my policy was save every discarded item for potential use at another potential scenario, and I've been using it extensively. Um, you name it, and they were there. I've been making my own needle knives with the help of sphincterotomes. I've been reusing them as simple canulotomes. And then in terms of disinfection, initially there was some manual disinfection that was taken over by semi-auto disinfection, and 2012 auto disinfectors came. And from 2017 onwards, in my personal journey, I increasingly started to use single-use devices, although still, I must confess that I use. Until 2016, my policy was to use the guide wire and peptidones till they break down, till they are of no more use. If I talk of my center where I'm working starting from January 2021 to May 2021, the total number of therapeutic endoscopic ultrasound and Ercp cases which have been done in the past 5 months is 760, with a consumption of 174 guide bars, meaning by that for 4.36 procedures, single wire is being used. Peptidome, 5.93 procedures, 128 peptidones were used for these procedures, and that means that 5.93 procedures were done by a single peptidome. And stone extraction balloon, 13.5, although I understand that in a certain procedure with sharp edging stones, we may be using more than one balloon in a single procedure, but on the average 13.5 procedures, they do get catered. I don't have detailed data on dilatation balloons, but at the same time, stone extraction balloons and other, depending on the pathology, they vary. And OSS stent pusher, they were used 15 for total number of 760 cases. Technical success has been 95% with pancreatitis, about 5.6%, and fever on day 1 was 10%. These are the rough figures. And that's how we have been using a system on regular basis, starting from the moment the endoscope comes, the manual cleaning with the enzymatic solution, with the soap and water, and then followed by its proper cleaning, and then taking them to the automatic disinfector. And that's how we use the automatic disinfectors. We have plenty of them in our unit. We put them here, and then we take them to the cupboard for the hanging, for drying, and then reprocessing. So lessons to be learned from the endoscopist perspective: single-use devices can be used safely, but with the limits. and we need to set the limits. We must pre-test the accessories. There should be a low threshold for discarding the accessories. Having the backup accessories in hands all the time, we should be better equipped. Anybody who is head of the department, they should be always vigilant of the needs of the department. And in selected cases, for example, in the post-liver transplant patient or patient who's already infected, it's good to start with the new accessories. And the one who is learning, one who is in the training stage, he or she must be given a better accessory and a better equipment. We must be aware of the procedure-related complications, especially pancreatitis and perforation, and almost all the cross-contamination reports have involved when there's been inadequate reprocessing process, and there are no published reports of transmission when strict guidelines have been followed. And this has been observed in the multi-society guideline published just recently by the Korean Society of Gastroenterology. Sticking to the standards is the most important, crucial point. With a proper endoscope pre-processing process, a proper storage process, and reuse of single-use devices can be safe, but ethical and legal liability issues still need a consideration, and technical success falls and procedure-related complications does go up. With these comments, I thank you for your patient listening. Now, may I invite Dr. Saad Niaz to give his presentation?
Ghias, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
And can you see the slides as well?
Yes, we can see the slide.
I'll take this opportunity, Ghias, to congratulate you because it's your hard work, thinking, and arranging this exercise for a very long time. Really seems like we've been doing it for years. It has been extremely useful and informative and an amazing learning experience for me to start with. And I'm sure all those who are involved I'm sure have enjoyed these sessions. So congratulations to you and everybody who's contributed in this, including Wilson Cook. Okay, these are my personal experiences that I'm going to share, okay? And like Ghias, let me start by saying that, look, this is what I have been doing, or we have been doing in one of our centers. So are we doing the right thing? I don't know. Are we doing the right thing under the circumstances? I believe so, because the circumstances that we are in are also playing a major role in guiding us as to how and what we should be doing to achieve the best results and to give the maximum service to our patients. So with that admission, how do we rationalize use of ERCP? Ghias is very nicely elaborated into some of the international experience and data that has been presented. Ghias, before I move on, I feel very strongly that the single disposable accessories, especially in ERCPs, came about because of the cost of human resources and human values in the West. And of course, also the benefit that it brings, huge benefit, financial benefit to the makers or manufacturers, and with some obviously benefit to the people performing procedures as well as the patient. But I believe, and this is my own thinking, that this is overplayed, and it makes it very difficult. As you mentioned, that we are now going into disposable scopes. Just the thought of it is really disturbing for me as to how the third world is going to, or the people, or the countries that are developing or financially not so strong, how are they going to manage? And it becomes a necessity for you because everybody starts with the world becoming so small these days, with the internet, etc. Patients and people know about it. So how do we rationalize? Obviously, use minimal accessories. The tendency of using minimal accessories in the West is really not something that I've seen. But this is something that we need to emphasize on. So unnecessary usage of accessories or expensive wires are not really needed for most cases. Expensive, different kind of sphincterotomes or accessories are really not needed in most of the cases if you know how to do what you're doing. One of the things that I've seen a lot of times with my juniors or trainees is the use of balloon extraction. They're trying to pull a large stone out with a balloon, and it's very clear that it's not going to be able to take it out, or the shape of the stone is such that you know that it's going to likely burst, especially if your sphincterotomy is not adequate. And I've seen that with patients, and that's an unnecessary waste of an accessory. So whether you use single use or whether you use reused accessories, these are general points that I think are important. For standard simple cases, use basic wires, basic accessories. Avoid creating multiple loops in a new wire, because if you're going to reuse wire and you create multiple loops, the wire it'll lose its ability to traverse a stricture or a difficult strictures. I think Ghias made this point, and I totally agree that you should have everything in hand, whether you reuse or whether you use single-use accessories. Lord, how do I change my slide? Wait a minute. I've always questioned, and this is, I'm sure, going to stir a lot of discussion probably. Is ERCP a sterile procedure? Really? Or endoscopy by nature, is it a sterile procedure? It really isn't. When you go in for a repeat ERCP in a patient who's infected, has got a blocked stent with cholangitis, you're actually going into an infected system. No matter how well you use or whatever accessories you're going to use, the stent, when you remove it, is going to come through the scope, or at least whatever you're using to pull it out will come out. So the whole scope is going to be now, from being whatever sterilization you've done is gone. So I think we overplay on sterilization, and that is something that maybe we need to look at. The infection risk is higher with accessories or with the scope. From the studies and data that was shown also by Ghias, by and large, it's mainly because of the scope. The difficult infections that we have encountered are mainly because of the scope, because we are unable to clean that elevator or the distal tip of the scope, which has become the major source of transmission of infection. And maybe that is also a risk. If you use disposable accessories and your scope is not clean and it's going to go down through that bridge, you're likely to contaminate that. So I think this is something that we need to think about. What do we do now? Coming back to reusing accessories, I think it's important that when you're using sphincterotome, avoid excessive poking. Aim to cannulate I think somebody's mic is on. Can we request everybody to shut the mic, please? Thank you. I think it's important, if you're going to reuse the sphincterotome, like Ghias said, you must make sure that the wire doesn't have any deposited carbon after the initial use. Guide wire, as I mentioned before, use the cheapest guide wire for most cases. But if you have a difficult thing, you should have other wires available to you. The glide wire is VisiGlide is excellent when you're stuck. But whenever I use that wire, I immediately take it out and I go back. Once my cannula has gone through the stricture, then immediately I'll change that wire so that I can reuse it. And the effectivity of the wire remains good for the next case. Extraction balloon, I've already discussed. Removing pancreatic stones with extraction balloon is again a reason for them to rupture. So a basket, we always make sure that you've used the basket, you bring it out, make sure that the wires are again, you've reconfigured or realigned the wires. These are little tips that help you if you do it straight away. CRE balloons, we avoid injecting into the CRE balloon. I don't think really for most cases, especially sphincteroplasty, you don't need to have dye injected. It works very well. We've now done over 1,000 cases and almost never inject, and it works pretty well. Keep them in the sheath after cleaning and sterilization, because otherwise the balloon cannot really be reused. It is very difficult to pass through the scope. Cleaning and keeping the accessories properly gives them longer life. So your technician should be really looked after. Okay, so I'll go to this slide, and we've looked at our cases in civil hospital and surgical floor from January to April. Our numbers have certainly gone down from before because of COVID. So we've done 370 ERCPs, of which 170 had biliary or pancreatic stenting. There were only 4 metallic stents we placed, and we had patients who were sent for benign disease, mostly biliary balloon, suspected, etc. 187. We had failed 9 cases, and they're all due to inaccessible ampulla, due to either duodenal obstruction or pyloric obstruction or whatever. It wouldn't allow our scope to go through. And in 370 cases, we did 8 pre-cut. So we have a success of almost 97, 98%. Now, this is interesting. I don't know if you can just quickly look at it. We used total in this period for 370 cases, 24 sphincterotomes at the cost of 444,000. 18,500 rupees is what we were quoted for a sphincterotome. We use 54 guide wires. Yeah, that gives you about 6 guide wires, 6 patients or 6 cases. Sphincterotome goes up even more. Needle knife, we used 1 needle knife and did 8 cases. Extraction balloons, 21 were used for the 180, 90 odd cases, whatever I just shared with you. So plastic stents, obviously, and biliary stents, we don't reuse. CRE balloon, we use 3 to do 25 cases. Triple side baskets, we use 2. And last, we just shared spyglass. DS2 that we have, we use 1 catheter, spy scope, and we did 7 cases with it. And 1 EHL probe, and spy bite was 2. Total cost of all this 370 cases was 49 lakhs, 14,000. Okay, so we go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay, so we go to this slide. If we were using disposable accessories, we would have used 370 sphincterotomes at a cost of 68 lakhs. We would use 370 wires, which would be about 66 lakhs. And balloon would be 42 lakhs, etc. And if you look at the total sum down here, total cost would have been approximately 2 crore 89 lakhs. And go back to this slide here, if using single accessories, we would have spent 2 crore 89 lakhs, and instead for 370 cases, we spent 49 lakhs. That's a saving of almost 2 crore 40 lakhs. Okay, so that's what we are talking about. Now, I go back here and I'll tell you in terms of our success, you can see we really had no failures in patients who had access to ampulla. Needle knife was used, in a small number of cases, and immediate complications, i.e., perforation immediately seen or bleeding, was no single case in this 370 cases. And pancreatitis and infection, I cannot really comment about because a lot of our patients are referred from other centers, but we did a prospective study of our patients in consecutive 500 patients some years ago, and we published it as well in our pancreatitis rates with the same usage that we have today with accessories was 2.9%. So really speaking, when I look at the complications, both in terms of pancreatitis, bleeding, perforation, and our success has really not been effective. Maybe it's the numbers. I mean, our total numbers are high. In the entire group, we do about 1,700 ERCPs per year. And yes, but this is all comers. This is not just my doing. We have my other colleagues who are doing these ERCPs. Of course, our success is high because when they fail, then the patient comes to my list. Alhamdulillah, it's in this series, we've had, alhamdulillah, very good results. But this is pretty much how it works for us. Now, sterile, I think it's very important that you have the right techs. Your techs have the right attitude. They know what they're doing. Whether it's the scope or whether it's the accessories, it's important to spend time and to give them the right importance. Wasim is our manager who leads our team, and I think they do a great job for us. Infection, I don't have data, and yes, of course, maybe it is higher, but it may be higher because of overall kind of patients that we deal with. We've had random checks by our ID team from accessories as well as our scopes to check for any organisms, and so far we've been cleared from them almost every time they have come. So that is what we are talking about in the real world. It is really upon those who are listening to us, and those who are doing ERCPs in the third world, in the developing world, or world where cost matters. I think these are the real facts. With our results, obviously, very clearly advocate. I agree with Ghias that maybe we need to define a number, but then it depends on the person who's doing it. Our ERCPs are, if you're going to spend 2 hours in doing an ERCP, then likelihood is that your accessories by the end of it are not going to be worth using. So there are a lot of factors involved in it, including your own, expertise, your own experience. But you can't ignore the fact that if we are providing 1,000 ERCPs for free and another 500 at very low cost, it's just not possible. It would not be possible for us to provide those 1,500 patients these services if we were not reusing the disposable accessories or single-use accessories. I strongly feel that we are not harming our patients. Overall, we are benefiting our patients. And I think until such time that the cost comes down, it would be very difficult to provide free service without reusing accessories. So over to you, Ghias, and anybody else who wants to chip in and ask any questions or criticize, be critical, or question, or have any experience which is similar.
Thank you, MSR. It was wonderful sharing your experience. You have shared your bit. You're doing a great job in Karachi. And I understand there are going to be lots of questions. There have been certain questions which have been popping up in the chat box. Firstly, how do you reprocess the single-use devices? And Kamran has asked that how can we standardize the disinfection across the country?
Very important points, Ghias, both of them. Sterilization, obviously, you have, depending on what is available to you, I think minimum is, like Ghias showed, you would be washing your accessories first, cleaning them from all the debris, and then putting them in one of the sterilizing solutions. Mostly, the one that is mostly used in Pakistan is still glutaraldehyde. But whatever solution you use, you have to ensure that it is properly washed, that the syringe is actually going through the cannula. If it is a cannula, in case of wire, you just need to make sure that it's nicely wiped and then left in the solution for at least 20 minutes. And then if you have the, like Riyaz showed, if you have different methods, then you can use those to clean the accessories. We also use gas sterilization for, but remember with gas sterilization, the usage becomes a little less in our experience, because the more you turn and the more you, whatever they do there actually affects the utilization. So these are the options that you have, but the minimum, in my opinion, which should be available to everyone is washing, making sure that that if you're using Sidex or glutaraldehyde or whatever solution you're using is actually one that is recommended, and second, you actually wash the cannula, and then after washing the cannula, dip it for long enough time to ensure that you have cleaned it. That's number one. Number two, yes, we should have standardization, and I think the more we talk about it, the more likely we are going to reach it. For now, what has happened is for a long time, we've just been putting it under the carpet. So with the healthcare commissions and with more accountability, we'll have to do that. And Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology, probably, in my opinion, is the best forum to do it.
Thank you, Asad. This is what the Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology is planning to do, to come up with a position statement in this year. And hopefully with that position statement, there will be a better guidance to people. Having said that, there's no one best solution. If we talk of the ideal solutions, we must remember that right now we are in an era where people have started to sue the medical centers and medical people. So legalities and at the same time, the draft registration, the restrictions, in particularly of the use of the old endoscopes, and similarly on the medical devices, that's coming up quite stringent. So we need to be mindful of that thing as well. There's another question in the panel. Can we expect local manufacturers to come up with the accessories built in Pakistan? Is PSC making any efforts to that end?
Ghias, I honestly feel that they can. I think again, the issue would be that it's the quality, and it would be the cost. Are they going to be able to? You see, the thing is, what is very important is the utilization. When we compare ourselves with other countries, for example, India next door, the utilization or the demand of accessories, the number of accessories is such that it makes it feasible for a company to get involved in manufacturing so that they make money out of it. Remember, the business community obviously would be interested in doing such a project if they make money out of it. And so hence it's about the numbers. If the numbers are big as they're increasing now, I am pretty sure if not now, in a few years, we will have manufacturers who would be interested, because the volume is now becoming sizable volume where it would make financial sense for them to get involved in it. But I feel that we are still a little bit away from that. Maybe, maybe 5 years from now, I feel that we would probably be getting more people interested in it.
I agree,
But
sir.
that's my personal view tonight.
No, you're perfectly right in saying that, because the numbers in Pakistan are not that many that it may give benefit to the industry. So the amount of guide wires that they can make, the number of guide wires that they can make, they will not be consumed in Pakistan. Rather, they'll have to export it. Yes, an export market is there if somebody tries to venture into it. That's definitely possible. Athar Ahmed Said wants to say something. He can unmute himself, because I and Athar have been in contact with NUST on certain strength issues. They've been trying to make, after the cardiology experience, they've been trying to make esophageal stents, and they're in the process of making one. And then obviously we're going to test them in our centers. Then let's see. Athar, you're on.
Yes, just two comments. One of them is regarding the capital investment regarding the endoscopy units, endoscopy infrastructure, scopes, stacks, etc. So I know, Riaz, that you had a plan made for the Punjab hospitals, teaching hospitals and district hospitals, which slowed down a bit, but I hope it will still be revived and it will still have a future. So my comment is that, when you buy a new scope, it costs crores of rupees. I know that in Punjab, at least, there is
Here's my phone.
an established system by a private entrepreneur where he has imported the NHS older equipment to equip the anesthesia units across the Punjab. So I wonder whether that is a paradigm that we should think of and make it kind of official and see if it works. Secondly, when we talk about the accessories, ERCP accessories, especially which are very expensive, remember that Pakistan is one market, but the whole world is your market. It depends on the quality. I'm sure when you have professionals in medicine like yourself, best in the world, there will be engineers as well. So you need to be talking to them. So that is what I feel.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, Athar, you're perfectly right in saying that. There's another question comment in the chat box. Amir Ghori is put up. What about your private practice? Are you guys using single-use devices or reusable? Well, to be honest, it depends. Um, uh, it depends on the affordability of the person. We can reuse the things. We can strictly use a single-use device, and obviously the risk factor in a given person as well. In a post-liver transplant patient, it is going to be by and large single-use devices. But in otherwise a straightforward patient and a person who can afford the heavy expense, maybe reusable of a clean device may be there. Mind you that for a stone in the private sector, the consumption of the disposable may be something in the tune of 60,000 to 70,000 for a straightforward case, and for complicated case, it may go up to 1,80,000. And for malignant stricture, straight away it goes up to 200,000. So this is something that needs to be kept in mind. And not everybody in the private sector either can afford this much cost. So this is something that needs to be kept in mind. So
I believe, Ghias, if I can add,
yes,
I agree with you mostly, but because I strongly believe that that I don't think I'm harming my patients by reusing accessories. So I really don't discriminate or differentiate in that. But I totally agree with the transplant patients. That's more not because of infection alone. I'm sure you would agree. That's also because these are difficult strictures, and so new wires and new things make it easy for you to do. Because in my opinion, my experience, whatever I had, I started doing ERCPs in 1991. So it's like I don't even want to go back there. Post-transplant LDLT, living donor transplant ERCPs are one of the most difficult ERCPs that I certainly get involved in. I mean, the rest of the things that are 4 and class 3, whatever they may be, but LDLT has a different, I think its difficulty is at a different level. So whereas obviously living, cadaveric transplant is not at all an issue. So I totally agree with you, except that I certainly reuse accessories in most. The day I feel that I'm actually doing something that is not good for my patient, I think I'll stop.
Sir, there's another question in the chat box. What about accessories with expiry date passed already? Now, it all depends on the type of accessory that we're using. Plastic has shelf life of its own, although it is very safe to use them a couple of years or maybe 3 to 4 years after the expiry date. But if it has been there for the past 10 years and the expiry date is long past, maybe I shall be a little careful. Naqvi Saab is there. Naksha, do you want to say something?
Yeah,
Hello.
Ghias, can I add just one thing on that? Asif Saab, just one
Yes.
thing. I think it's very important here, Ghias, that you should inform the patient. If you're going to use something that has actually got an expiry, I think it should be discussed with the patient, and as long as the patient is okay with it, then we should go ahead and use it. Otherwise, stents, especially metallic stents, and those are the ones that we tend to, and they should be. The rest of the things, as long as the expiry is, like you said, within a few months, I don't think it makes a difference. But still, it's best that we, in the current day and age, it's best that patients should know that we are going to be using, and then we should discuss with them that they should that we don't see any problem.
Nabi sir?
Ji, Assalamu alaikum. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Wonderful presentation, and really, I think probably it looks to me that for quite some time, the need for reuse of accessory will continue in Pakistan. And I think there's no alternative to that. But as you very rightly highlighted, that selection of some cases where it should not be used, I think that needs to be probably propagated within the community which is doing ERCPs. One other aspect which I thought just highlight here when we were talking about the logistics, a lot of our colleagues like Athar and like Nadeem and so on, I think they have made a comments, and I had a personal experience that, when people from here try to bring those accessories which are out of date accessories, there's such an issue which arises in relation to custom and so on. And I think that is now, dissuading a lot of people not to, every one of us used to collect those things in our offices and so on. But they are difficult to come because not only that shipment is a problem, but I think it's processing on the site. If you personally bring it is an issue. So maybe I think something this on some formal basis, something needs to be done as well, because I think there are a lot of accessories can come for use of our people over here, which you have been doing in the past. Thank you.
Nabi, thank you very much for raising a very important issue, because we have been getting support from you, from Nadeem, from Atta, Khalid, and similarly so many other friends from UK and USA and rest of the world. A few months ago, the same issue was raised by another colleague of ours from UK, and he said that similar stringent measures have been put by UK government as well. Yeah, and they don't permit anymore the even in the personal baggage taking out the accessories for the same purpose. So here it expresses reservations on the previously existing mechanism. So yes, in Pakistan, if you let us know that you're coming, we can always make an arrangement, but then that's going to be an informal arrangement. DRAP always puts up into a very uncomfortable position. Rather, I should say that DRAP has rules and regulations which binds us that we should not be using any expired equipment or any equipment which has been opened. And similarly, for the medical devices as well, anything which is 5 years older and has been used outside cannot be brought into the Pakistan.
I think, Ghias, if I can add,
Yes.
it has been a practice, and a lot of our patients have benefited, especially with certain kind of accessories that are not available here. I mean, we don't have all the range of, a lot of accessories that are not available here, or the numbers are so small that their distributors or the actual manufacturers are not interested. This is not a market for them. I think this is a legal issue, and we should just follow whatever the legal issue, or however else we follow the legal issues. And I think it's becoming more and more of a problem both for the West and for us. So we need to be careful about it. On this kind of a forum, my suggestion is that until we have some kind of a permission, whatever one does individually is obviously individual, but from this forum, I think we need to just be very clear that we really do not support the use or bringing in such as accessories for now, until DRAP or whatever authority actually has an arrangement, because there's liability on both sides. liability on people who want to bring it, because this is something that has become more, has been brought to light more now than it was maybe a few years ago. So it puts our colleagues overseas at risk as well. So I think that's also very important. One has to keep that in mind. And the second thing is obviously it's putting us at risk. So on a forum like this, I think our response to this would be very clear. But individually, I think you can do what you want to do.
So no webinar can be complete without we hear from Nadeem and Khalid. So Khalid, how can we miss hearing?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, congratulations to everyone, not only the organizers, but also participants as well. This was an excellent series. I personally thoroughly enjoyed the whole series. And I think before we conclude this last session, we got to make sure that there is a plan for some sort of another series because I'm going to miss everybody, seeing everybody. So we need to start working on that. And hopefully next Sunday we have something else. Other thing, honestly, healthcare is becoming more and more expensive. And it's not a problem just in third world countries. Actually, it may be less expensive there because there are a lot of other like reusable stuff we can do that. And I personally strongly believe a lot of this stuff, accessories, we can reuse those. And it has to be with the proper sterilization. But just like anything, a lot of stuff is controlled by the politicians, a lot of stuff is controlled by the donors. And there is some, there has to be some responsibility from these medical accessory making companies as well. And they understand that too. I believe that some of this stuff can be reused, but obviously it's a business. So they gotta sell their equipment, accessories. So I think at some point, it would be realized that this is not sustainable. And this is not sustainable anywhere in the world right now. Now we're talking about disposable scopes, and everything is becoming more and more expensive. At the end of the day, I think we just need to use a common sense, and whatever resources are available to us, just utilize those and utilize it the best possible way to help the patients. At the end of the day, the goal is to take good care of the patients. So whatever we got, just use it. And also, just we cannot blame these reusable accessories. It's not just scopes and accessories which fail us. It's our training, it's our skill which fail us as well. So instead of blaming our scopes and accessories, we gotta pay attention to ourselves, and wherever the availability of learning is, we all need to take advantage of that.
True. Thank you very much. Sadiq, do you want to say something?
So I would take this opportunity again and congratulate all those who've been involved and participated, and pioneers like yourself and Dr. Saad Ghias, who I think initiated a fantastic educational program for all of us, all across the board. I'm just going to add one thing to what has already been said. And I think if you as a PSG and other PSG leadership, if you approach the, say, for example, here in PSG, we have got an international committee, and the lead or the chair of the international committee is Neil Hawkes, who've been very supportive of initiatives that's been taken by expats from other parts of the world as well. For example, in Bangladesh, they have established a very good link with them, and they support all those who of Bangladesh heritage who travel to Bangladesh or for any sort of educational projects or otherwise. There is a good support for them, and if you take that initiative and approach them, I'm sure they will be able to come up with these solutions to these to these problems. I mean, be it reusable accessories or other educational or training projects. I think that so that would really help us going forward. But thank you very much for organizing this fantastic activity, and thank you all.
Dr. Sadiq? Okay.
जी सर, Assalamualaikum everyone, especially Professor Ghias Saab and Saad Khalid Nia Saab for organizing such activity. And also I would be like to thankful our international faculty, especially Dr. Khalid, Dr. Mustafa, Dr. Nadeem for contributing to this activity. I would suggest that these all webinars should be combined and has to be displayed as a learning activity from the PSG website. So anyone can retrieve that and rewatch it. One. Second, I would suggest that I would request Professor Saad Khalid Niaz and all the other team, if you mobilize or you encourage the business community, if they can establish one factory now, and the price will be definitely down, and we would not be in a condition that we use these reusable things. If they just start and they encourage and they tell the business, they will definitely establish a factory. Hello.
Thank you, Sadiq. Thank you very much for this valuable comment. I think business industry and medical industry, they should combine together for the ultimate winner. Sadiq has very rightly given us a message that the patient should be the ultimate winner. The training should not get compromised. And with these comments, I thank you all for being with us for the past 42 webinar series. They will be available on PhD website. And in a week's time, our colleague who's managing the website, Dr. Shumail, he's going to upload them on the website of Pakistan Society of Gastroenterology. We're going to send you the emails, and we're going to share the certificates as well for attending these webinars. Very soon, we are going to come up with another program, and that is PhD Super League, which is brainchild of Nadeem Tayami, and I'm sure he's going to come up with an excellent program. And obviously, Saad is there. I'm also there. Professor Altaf Alam is here to coordinate. And we will continue with the learning opportunities. We'll learn further, and our students are going to learn further. Ultimately, our patients are going to be the winner. So with this, I thank Wilson and particularly Dr. Said, and similarly Dr. Junaid and the rest of my colleagues and all the attendees who have attended this webinar. Thank you very much. Take care. Assalamu alaikum. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.